So hello and welcome back to What's Up with Energy, a GridX podcast. Today we're going to be talking about wholesale electricity markets, how power is bought and sold, what drives price volatility, and how renewables are changing market dynamics. To break it all down with me, I am excited to introduce GridX's energy market expert, Irene Guerra, who has seen firsthand how these markets evolve. So, Irene, thank you for joining me.
Hello, Georgia. Thank you for having me.
And for our listeners, obviously, you can pronounce your name because I don't think I said it quite correctly. And also, if you want to just introduce yourself in general and tell us how you came to the world of energy.
Of course. Thank you so much. So my name is actually pronounced Irene. It's a Spanish name. I am originally Spanish from a beautiful city called Valencia. And as you said, energy market expert in GridX since last year. And how I entered the energy world, I basically started really early on in my career. So I studied industrial engineering back in Valencia. And there I did my bachelor's and my master's. And with my master's degree, I had the opportunity to do a double degree with the Technical University of Munich. So I decided, why not? Let's pack our bags and go to Munich. And that's what I did. And I studied my master's in energy technology here in Munich. And that's how I focused in energy and I started in the energy world. And maybe the motivation behind, I think it's not strange to think of and talk about climate change nowadays, right? And that was my main mission behind the studies and focusing on energy. So working in companies, energy companies that help drive this mission to success, like GridX.
And then what got you interested in like energy markets specifically rather than like the technology side or something like that?
Yes. So energy markets, I got to know and got to work with in my last job where I discovered the world of energy trading. Yes. So there is where I discovered how the markets really worked and how the trading actually happens and why it is important and the actual impact that it can have in global events, like, for example, when we pay our electricity price, right? That comes directly from the day-ahead market and just focusing on how everything works behind the market structure and the influence that has in our everyday lives really got me interested. And that's how I decided to focus on that.
Nice. And then can you give a brief explanation of what we mean when we're talking about wholesale energy markets? We're going to be talking about balancing markets in another episode.
Yeah, so we call them wholesale energy markets because they involve bulk electricity transactions between generators and suppliers or large consumers, right? So, and this is done before reaching end users. So the price is basically defined by matching supply and demand. And this is what we understand by wholesale energy markets. It is also similar in other industries, I think. And it's defined as matching supply and demand, and then transparent price comes from it. And inside the wholesale energy markets, we can actually distinguish between two types. We have the over-the-counter market, which is when bilateral transactions happen between generators and suppliers or large consumers. Those bilateral transactions are also commonly known as PPAs, power purchase agreements. Okay. And then we have the markets that involve an exchange, so the exchange markets. And these are done through external platforms, exchange platforms called like EPEX or Nord Pool. And in these ones, we can further distinguish between spot markets and futures market. And the difference there is actually how long before the delivery point you actually do the trading. So for futures market, that is very long term, so years to months before the delivery period. And for spot markets, that is more short-term trading, and that is days to hours before the delivery period. And that is so there is also a further distinguishment that we can make. And inside spot markets, we actually have the day-ahead market, which is most commonly known as spot market. No? Okay. And then we also have the intraday market.
Okay.
And the day ahead market, it's called day ahead because the trading happens 24 hours before delivery, the delivery period.
Okay.
And intraday actually happens during the same day. So I think the intraday market opens at 3 the day before delivery, and the continuous market goes all along through the day until 5 minutes before delivery. So it's really short term.
Okay.
And that is what we most commonly known as wholesale markets, this group of different markets.
So now with the influx of renewable energy, which we both know is inherently variable, and this is increasing our energy mix, how have wholesale market structures have to adapt to that?
Very good question. I think everyone has had to adapt to renewable energy. So it's not just wholesale markets, but to name a few ways in which specifically wholesale markets have changed with renewables is basically the first one that comes to my mind is maybe the growing importance of short-term trading. So short-term trading or spot markets, right? So day ahead and intraday, both have become increasingly important for renewable energy generators because renewable energy, it has a lot of fluctuations in their production, right? Mm-hmm. It is a really intermittent generation. And basically, renewable energy generators, they have to adjust their production when it doesn't match the forecast, right? So you trade with a forecast, and because it's so fluctuant and because weather forecasts are sometimes not so accurate, you find yourself with a difference between production and forecast, and that you have to really adjust your position, and they do that by trading that difference in the short-term markets when possible. Another measure could be that now cross-border bidding is actually possible. So it's not only national bids that happen, but now cross-border bidding is possible thanks to the two platforms, which are called the Euphemia platform for the day-ahead coupling and the XBid platform for the intraday coupling. So intraday and day-ahead bids can actually happen between countries. Yeah. And it's something that is also increasingly important in Germany now, that day-ahead market is actually going to change to 15-minute basis. So
that's recent.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like super, okay.
Yeah, that's going to actually happen in June of this year for Germany.
Okay.
And it comes from EU regulation. So EU regulation actually said, okay, all the day-ahead markets need to be based on 15 minutes products instead of 1 hour. And that change is happening in June 2025. And this is because of renewable energy also, right? To kind of integrate better renewable energy production, because it's much easier to trade quarter-hourly blocks than 1 hour blocks for renewable energies.
When it comes like renewable energy and the technology, a problem is standardization in Europe across all of the countries. Like, what is happening in Spain isn't necessarily what's happening in France and Germany. With the time increments, trying to see if I'm wording this the right way, like right now, do all the countries, like if you're on the intraday market, are they all trading within the same time blocks?
That's a good question. So it actually depends on the country.
Okay.
So there's, in the intraday continuous market, for example, you have 15-minute hour blocks, you have 1 hour blocks, so 60 minutes, and you have half an hour.
Okay.
And there's countries where you can do the three of them. So basically in Germany, you can trade 15 minutes, 30 minutes, and 60 minutes products. There's other countries, like, for example, UK, where 30 minutes is more common. So it really depends.
Okay. And with this new, where you said Germany, we can trade in the quarterly hour in June. That's something that just at the moment will be happening. You said in Germany in June. It's not like all of the member countries in 2025 change it.
Yeah, exactly. So in 2025, there will be several changing.
Yeah.
But Germany specifically will be changed in June. And I think it's something that will happen gradually between the member states. Yeah.
Okay. And actually, while you were explaining, using the smaller, in my mind, it's the smaller markets, like the day ahead, the intraday. Would anyone still be using the futures market now with renewable energy in the mix? Like doing
For
that
sure.
year, months in advance?
Yes, for sure. So you can imagine that renewable energy generators, they also need to have long-term security. And for that, they also sell the estimated production long-term, right? Because then you can actually then adjust your position if it's not accurate enough in the short-term trading markets. So long-term trading is used a lot for what's known also as hedging. So kind of to give security, to have basically optimized economic revenue for all of the generators.
Okay.
So it's a way of making money.
Okay. So we've seen increasing price volatility in European wholesale markets. In your opinion, what are the main drivers behind this? And do you see it changing in the near or the far future?
So we could say that there's several drivers, right? The main driver, I would say, is the increasing percentage of renewable energy generation, and that is happening right now in the electricity mix. And the price volatility, it happens because of how the electricity price is calculated. Because electricity price in the day-ahead market, it's calculated with the merit order. It's commonly known as the merit order, where you order your available electricity supply depending on the source. So renewable energy generation are actually negatively priced, so with negative price. And then you order them by other sources, like, for example, hydro or nuclear. In the case of Germany, that is not the case because nuclear is not there anymore. But then also like natural gas, lignite, coal, and so on. And the fossil fuels actually have a much higher price than the renewable. They are set with a much higher price.
Yeah.
And whenever there is no renewable energy generation, like, for example, in the dark doldrums or the Dunkelflaute of Germany, right? When there's no wind, no solar production, then the electricity price is mainly based on fossil fuel prices. And that makes it super volatile. But then when there's a lot of renewable energy generation, prices can reach negative amounts. So it's this difference comes from the renewable energy generation. Another reason is, of course, we mentioned fossil fuel prices have increased. One of them is because of geopolitical events also, right? Because of, for example, the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, natural gas prices increased tremendously. And that also made countries like Germany, which were highly depending on it, to have more price volatility.
Yeah. And do you see any of this changing then in the future?
Well, my short answer would be it depends. I think it depends a lot. We know that there's changes in regulation happening, so that this can be more or less controlled. When the Russia conflict started, of course, price caps were a thing, right? Where electricity prices had maximum amounts that could reach. And now I would say energy storage growth and demand-side flexibility is what is really could control in the future this price volatility. So for renewable energy producers, when there's a surplus of production, to be able to store that and then use it whenever there's scarcity and whenever they don't have renewable energy production because it's dark, because there's no wind, because of other reasons. And to be able to then feed the grid with that electricity. So the use of large-scale batteries and small-scale batteries in households with self-consumption and so on, that is something that can really help with the price volatility.
And is this, so we're recording this right now in February, even though this podcast won't be out for a little while afterwards. But for us, the solar peak law just came into effect or was just announced. This kind of ties into that, right? Like with the negative prices and the needing storage.
Exactly, yeah. So the solar peak law actually will come into force officially from the 25th of February, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And it was approved by the federal cabinet in Germany on the 14th of February. So it's something that we know for sure it's going to happen.
Okay.
And it tackles problems like negative electricity prices, right? Where renewable energy producers and people that are in the feed-in system, they will stop receiving this feed-in subsidy when negative prices are present. Right? That is one of the things that will happen. The second thing that can happen or that will happen is that, for example, arbitrage is now allowed. So for households that have a battery to store and have, of course, a PV system and so on, so prosumers, to store electricity when prices are really low and then sell it or feed it into the grid when prices are really high will now be allowed.
And that was not allowed.
Not in Germany, no.
Before. I guess I was thinking it's like, you have no way to control it, like when people are going to feed it in or not. But that makes sense. And what role do you see demand-side flexibility playing into this? Because, I mean, we're already talking about the storage part. Do you see, like, demand-side flexibility playing an equally important role as the storage?
In my opinion, yes. So both are critical tools. So because there's also a problem with large-scale batteries, and that is that there's a certain limit that you can actually implement into the grid because of the grid capacity, right? So there will be a problem where having large-scale batteries will not solve this problem anymore, right? And it won't be, you cannot scale it anymore. So there will not be more large-scale batteries allowed. And that is what demand-side flexibility enters the play. So to not only have large-scale batteries to control this volatility, but also people to adjust their consumption and people to adjust their demand depending on the market conditions. That is something that will be critical to everyone, basically, in the future. Or I'm at least I see it as critical. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And this brings me into our rapid fire round. So are you ready?
Yes, of course.
So they start off a little easy.
Okay.
So beach or mountains?
Beach or mountains?
Like, which do you like more?
Oh, beach, for sure. I was like, I don't understand what she said. She's asking? No, beach, for sure. I'm also a mountain girl, but beach all the way.
What is the most energy efficient thing you've done this year?
Working in GridX.
Yeah. If you had to pick one for the rest of your life, which would you trade in, day ahead or intraday?
Intraday.
What is the craziest price swing or energy market event that sticks out in your mind?
Oh, I saw the other day price spreads in Germany of 12,000.
Oh.
So difference between maximum and minimum of 12,000 last year in 2024. Yeah. That is for sure extreme.
Oh my God. What is the weirdest or most unexpected factor that has ever influenced electricity prices?
Not weirdest, but big factor, the Russia war with Ukraine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If electricity markets were a sport, which one would they be?
Wow, football.
European football?
Soccer for
Yes, yeah. Okay, just had to clarify. Why?
Because there's different markets, right? There's different teams. There's one that are more competitive than others. And there's really big competition around it.
Okay, all right.
And you can make a lot of money, which is also the case of soccer.
That's true, yeah. Nice. If electricity markets were an animal, which would they be?
Oh, wow. I don't know. Fast animal, let's say leopard.
Okay, nice. If you could change one thing about wholesale markets overnight, what would it be?
What's happening already, 15 minutes slots for day ahead, which is happening already, yeah.
What is the best piece of market advice you've ever received?
Oh, wow. Market advice. Maybe focus on the intraday continuous market.
Okay.
That would be a really good advice. The price volatility in that market and the amount of lows and highs you can get is actually crazy compared to other markets.
And then last one, if electricity traders were on a reality TV show, which would they be on?
Oh, Big Brother, for sure. Yes.
Isn't that the one where they're all like locked in a house together,
Locked in a house, yeah, fighting each other, yes.
And they vote each other off?
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
It's, competition all the way.
Which electricity, who do you think would become Big Brother, right? Is that the winner? You're the Big Brother?
I think one of them wins, right?
Yeah.
Intraday continues.
Okay, yeah. All right, we see the favorite market.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you for the next episode to talk about balancing markets.
Thank you very much, Georgia.
If you'd like to learn more about the world of renewable energy or energy management systems, be sure to check out our website, gridx.ai, where we produce regular blogs and glossaries about the subject. You can also follow us on LinkedIn or on Twitter and Instagram at GetGridX.